that. So the Bible is a ratification of conscience, not a substitute for it.
The Bible is a ratification of conscience, not a
The
substitute
Ten Commandments
for it.
are a codification of already existing moral codes. It didn't invent those codes.
Okay, but it does specify the penalties for breaking those codes. Are those part of our absolute morality?
No, because the penalty specified in the Bible applies to the old Jewish law and was abrogated, at least to some degree, in the New Testament or Christianity.
So there are parts of the Old Testament, then, that we really don't have to pay attention to at all.
Exactly.
Okay, great. I wanted to make sure about that. So how do we know...
I mean, that's not my position. That was the position of Paul. There was a huge debate about this by the early Christians. And so that's why, for example, Christians don't keep the Sabbath, they don't have bar mitzvahs, they don't do a lot of stuff that Orthodox Jews do. This issue was settled 2,000 years ago, even if you're just finding out about it now.
Okay. Thanks for the snark. Whose Christianity is right, and how do we know? We're talking about, is Christianity good for America? Whose Christianity is right, and how do we know?
Well, the fact of the matter is that while you can say there are a lot of different sects and so on, there is a kind of mainstream Orthodox Christianity that's come down for 2,000 years. It is the common ground between the Protestants and the Catholics. You can call it Nicene Creed Christianity. And it is the Christian mainstream. Now, on the periphery, there are lots of debates about premillennials and postmillennials and something that is sometimes debated called the rapture and so on. But the fact of the matter is the mainstream Christian tradition is subscribed to by the vast majority of self-identifying Christians.
Yeah, but there are 33,000 different sects of Christianity. Every single one of them believes they're right. How do we know which one is right for America?
Well, in a country where you have freedom of religion, you don't. But that would be like me saying there are 40,000 types of conservatives and Republicans, and there probably are. But nevertheless, there is a conservative point of view that most of us would recognize.
But the breadth of Christianity is huge. 30,000 different sects. That's a lot of breadth. 33,000 actually, and 31,000 sentences in the Bible. 33,000 sects of Christianity. That's a pretty broad amount of disagreement. How do we know what kind of Christianity is right for America?
David, I think we're here a little bit in different planets. I mean, if you go into a Christian church, whether it be, I'm not talking now, for example, about the guys in Waco who are the church that shows up at military funerals, but if you go to Presbyterian churches and Methodist churches and Anglican churches, you hear the same Christianity. Different liturgy, different emphasis. It's completely recognizable. You mentioned that your mixed marriage. I was raised Catholic. I'm married to an evangelical Christian. I've been in a lot of different churches. I speak in a lot of different churches. They're very different in a way. Some play modern music. Some play some classical hymns. But the fact of the matter is the core elements of the Christianity are recognizably the same. So,
Mr. D'Souza, your turn to start with questions for David Silverman.
You mentioned at the outset of your talk that you were going to have a talk based on facts.
Mm-hmm.
And then you immediately followed it by saying, I would like to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you a question. Will you live after you die?
No.
Now, that's an interesting statement because if Shakespeare is right, death is the undiscovered country, from whose bourne, as he puts it, no traveler ever returned. None of us, neither you nor I, nor Dom, have been through the door of death, nor, I assume, have we interviewed dead guys. You don't know what comes after death, do you?
Shakespeare writes fiction, right? He wrote fiction. Dinesh, and
the line
we
I'm
have a
quoting
set of laws
is
of
a
physics.
profound statement about human nature and about what we really know.
Your question
Someone
was...
can be a fiction writer and still make truthful statements about human nature. Have you ever read Shakespeare?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
You just
I've
dismiss it all
read
as
a little
fiction.
Shakespeare. My point is that you asked me how I know there is no life after death.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you a straight-out question. Do you know that there is no life after death?
As well as I know everything, I know there's no life after death.
Okay.
Everything dies, no matter how much we wish it weren't true. Kitties die, doggies die, fish die, plants die. Every living thing in the universe dies.
That's right. And caterpillars die, but they also become butterflies. I'm sure if you
That's
asked a
not
caterpillar,
death, my friend.
I'm sure if you asked a caterpillar what comes after caterpillardom, they would say nothing. But the fact of the matter is, you don't know what comes after that, do you?
You're doing Russell's teapot, Dinesh, and you know better than this.
Russell's teapot?
Russell's teapot.
I've heard of Russell's teapot and the spaghetti monster, but those are fallacious arguments. I'm
Russell's
asking you,
teapot is not a fallacious argument. That's exactly what you're doing.
It's a
You're
completely...
saying, well, I don't know that there's not some way, some reason out there, so I'm going to believe it. If there's no reason to believe something, you don't believe it. You don't believe that there's something orbiting Pluto without reason. There's no reason at all to believe in life after death. 2,000 years Christians have been trying to show.
David.
Actually, 5,000 years people have been trying to show life after death. Every single one of them has failed 100% of the time. How much data do you need?
You've supplied no data. Look, let me ask you this. Let's test your proposition that if we do not have evidence for something, therefore it does not exist. Is that your principle?
If we do not have evidence for something, there is no reason to believe it exists.
Right. Let me ask you this.
It's a difference.
Do you think that there is a possibility of life on other planets?
Yes.
And yet we have no evidence for life on other planets, do we?
Life on other planets would not violate every
yes
known...
or no if you can. Is
What?
there evidence for life on other planets?
There's no evidence against
Right. And
it.
yet
And
you,
it
and
wasn't...
yet,
Yes,
and yet,
let me answer the question,
and
sir.
yet,
Let me answer the question, sir.
Okay.
Life on other planets would not break every law of physics as we know it. God and an afterlife would.
I don't think it would. First of all,
No, there's a one thing between
laws-
postulating different things, and there's another thing between postulating fantasy. Okay,
you
there's
agree,
no Santa Claus.
David?
I can't prove Santa Claus doesn't exist, but I don't actually give it credence, Dinesh.
we're not talking about Santa Claus.
Yes, we are.
Do you agree that the laws of physics are, if you will, a set of laws that apply to our universe?
A set of understood laws that
Yes.
apply to the universe as we know it.
And if there were other universes or other realms beyond our universe, they would have other laws, wouldn't they?
Possibly.
And that's what cosmologists say right now, don't they?
Some.
Right. And so if there is another realm called heaven and another realm called hell, wouldn't it stand to reason that they would have different laws than the ones that we have on Earth right now?
Are you postulating that God is some sort of interdimensional space alien?
I'm saying that's a possibility.
Oh. Well, if you're saying that God is a space alien, that takes it into
I
a
didn't
different
say he was a
account.
space alien.
That's what you just said.
We were talking about life after death. and
You
I
just said different universes, and
Yes.
that means that different universes apply to different laws, and there could be life in those different universes, I suppose, but then anything in that universe would be subject to the laws of that universe, and that's not supernatural. That is just beyond the laws of nature that we know today.
Actually, that is supernatural because nature describes our universe.
No,
Nature is all there is.
that is not supernatural. Supernatural is outside the laws of nature.
That's right.
Not outside the laws,
Outside the laws
of,
of
nature
nature.
as we know it.
Outside the
Big
laws of
difference.
nature as we know them.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. That concludes our moving off the schema here and going to questions back and forth, which I particularly enjoyed. All right, we have time just for closing statements. David, if you'd like to go first. I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to just make a statement here about the World Trade Center cross. 9/11 was an American tragedy, not a Christian one. Okay? It had absolutely no more to do with Christianity than it had to do with atheism. And what they're doing by putting in a cross is they're allowing the Christians to be memorialized, and they're ignoring the 400 to 500 atheists that died on 9/11. That will not stand. We're not going to sit back and let public money on public land be going out to one religion, not just on the establishment cause, but also on the equal protection clause. It is anti-American to say that. We're not demanding removal of the cross. We're demanding the removal of the cross or the equal treatment of everybody else, and that is purely American. Now, and by the way, we're going to win. The objective tonight was whether or not Christianity is good for America. By the way, before I go on, I just want to put out a thank you to everybody for coming. I also want to mention that the Reason Rally will be the largest secular event in world history. 15 national organizations will create a bunch, essentially an atheist Woodstock on March 24th, and you're all invited to come, reasonrally.org. Now, I brought quantitative data tonight. I brought quantitative data defending my assertion that Christianity today is not good for America today. Real statistically significant data from multiple corroborating independent sources showing a positive correlation between Christianity and that which we consider to be bad for America. A rise in disease, a rise in ignorance, a shorter lifespan, less charitable giving, and a lower quality of life. That's bad. I have shown that the secular democracies, countries like us, don't have the problems that we have, at least not to our extent. And I have shown that here in America, Christianity asserts itself on non-adherence with cafeteria-style morality that it determines is morally objective. The problem is that their objective morality is subjectively selected, and therein lies the reason for the many different sects of Christianity. Has my opponent made his case? Did he use enough research to support his claims to counter mine? Did he use logic? Did he use hyperbole? Did he use quantitative data? Or did he use straw man arguments? Facts are facts, ladies and gentlemen. And whether you like them or not, they remain facts. The fact that you've been raised to believe a myth doesn't make it true. Not knowing the answer to a question doesn't make something else true. Ignorance of fact is not evidence for fiction, and wishing doesn't make it real. Every living thing in the universe dies. It really dies. It doesn't go anywhere, and like I said before, neither do your dogs or your cats or your kids or your grandparents. We all want to live forever. And this is why so many intelligent people believe the lies spread about religion. We submit to religion's authority. We buy their books. We tell their stories. And we tithe our paychecks, sometimes way too much, just so we can pretend to believe in an eternal life. None of that makes it real. Is it a nice lie? Certainly. Does it make people feel better? Oh, yeah. Does it make people violent or vitriolic or vindictive when the lie is challenged? Most definitely. Does any of this make the lie truth? No. Ladies and gentlemen, I dare and beg you all to research your religion carefully. Don't live your life according to a lie just because your parents raised you to do so. You have one life. Live it well. Look at both sides and think about it in depth for a long period of time. Because Christianity is not only bad for America, it's bad. Thank you.
David Silverman. Mr. D'Souza's closing statement.
Probably my first exposure to Christianity that I remember was as a young boy. I was talking to my grandfather about how our ancestors became Christians. And I said that I had read about the Inquisition and the European countries coming to India. And my grandfather pointed out something that had never occurred to me. He said, in fact, lots of Indians flung themselves into the arms of the missionaries. Why? Because in India you had the caste system. And if in the caste system you were at the bottom of the ladder, you were doomed. No amount of merit, no amount of effort could get you out of it forever, or your descendants. So when the missionaries came, they might have been selfish, ignorant, greedy, etc. But they were talking about universal brotherhood. We are all equal in the eyes of God. And this was a revolutionary idea. And so many of the low-caste Hindus instantly became Christians. This is the nuance and complexity of history. and it's something that has been missing on the other side of this debate. Now, the fact